It's showtime. Talk about it with Franjez. Today we have two special guests. Returning guest co-host Michael Mukatash and the creator and host of the spiritually focused brand Off the Left Eye, which has over 160,000 YouTube subscribers, more than 40 million views, and 400,000 followers on Facebook. Today's guest is Curtis Childs.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you very much for being here.
The young goat.
Yeah,
man,
the young
greatest.
goat. That's a great name. I like that. So let's start off with a little wellness check. How are you doing today?
Thanks for asking. I'm doing great. I've just had a good spring. I don't know if it's me getting older or something, but when the light starts to come back in and it starts to warm up, my mood just goes up. I'm just like, that's getting lifted. I'm feeling really productive. I've started doing a little more of like to-do list kind of stuff and crossing that off. So if I have even things for work I've got to do, I get a certain amount and that just energizes me. So then I keep on rolling there. So I'm doing well there. I've got a daughter. She's enjoying school. And so that always gets me in a good mood. Life is pretty good, man. Thank you.
Awesome. What grade is she in?
Second grade.
Nice.
So she's still is like, school is fun. Life is fun. Everything's great. And hopefully it stays that way forever.
Hopefully, yeah. Definitely, hopefully. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Alhamdulillah, thank God. I got a second grader too and a kindergartner. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, thank God. How you doing, friend?
I'm very good. Since we're talking about kids in school, mine's in the 11th grade. Daughter.
Nice.
And she's doing good.
Oh, God bless you. College time.
Yeah, now it's time to make big decisions. Yeah.
I'll tell you something that can help.
It's a whole different set of decisions than you make for having an 8-year-old. So good luck with all of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Curtis, I think can point us in a couple of books, to make good decisions.
Really? I love talking about books. If you have one to recommend to a teen, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's see. I haven't gotten there yet myself, so I've found that like every age my daughter gets to, I have to start to learn how to be a parent at that age. And it's not like, I think other things in my life like work, I feel like, this kind of comes easily to me. The parents is like, I need all the help I can get with that. I started doing this like a dad's group where I'll get together with a number of other guys at our church, and I'll just listen to them. Like they'll talk about the kind of decisions that they make, the kind of rules they have or don't have. And I learned so much every time I go home, and I changed the way that I parent, because you just like, there's so much else going on in life, and this is such an important thing, but I don't really know what to do. And so that's been great. I don't know. I obviously, Swedenborg books are what give me, Emanuel Swedenborg books, if anyone's not familiar, that's what gives me my moral compass and my clarity. So I wouldn't like try to teach that to my daughter. It's too confusing, and they won't. You're really not going to get much out of that till you're like sort of early 20s. But that gives me a way of being, and then I can try to pass that can help me make my decisions, when I'm trying to lead her. So I would, there's books I'd recommend for grownups. For kids, I don't know. I'm not there yet.
That's kind of tough, isn't it? Where it's like kids are impressionable. There should be books for them to, like for Swedenborg books. You said it's easier to grasp it in your 20s than your teens, right?
Yeah.
If you could get kids younger, that would be a better start for them. You know what I mean?
Kids get affected by media or messages or things outside of your home. Kids really get affected by that, and not necessarily in a bad way. There'll be a lot of times when, like, my wife and I, for example, are trying to teach her, like, well, you gotta, we just got you that toy, so you can't just say, I want another toy now. That's kind of getting spoiled. And she'll be like, oh yeah, like in Bluey. when Bluey was spoiled. Bluey is this kids show, and like it'll be stuff that she won't listen to us about, but if she hears it in a show, she really takes it in. So that's also I guess that's one of the reasons why I try to get videos out on social media, is there's so much, like, kids really get influenced by that. Everyone does. I want to be a voice that's in there trying to influence for good. You know, and we'll get some teenagers. You know, a percentage of our audience is 13 and 17. It's not huge, but it's there. I don't remember what it is. It's single digits, like 5% or something. But hopefully that's some kids that are at least getting a dose of kind of spiritual, love-based thought alongside whatever else they're watching on TikTok.
So if we can take it back
Perfect.
a second, just so people know who Curtis is, yeah, and Off the Left Eye. What is that? If you can wrap up the mission statement of Off the Left Eye, what would that be?
So I have devoted my life pretty much to trying to understand and teach the teachings of the Christian mystic and scientist Emanuel Swedenborg. To him, that's what's gotten me to really have as clear a picture as I have of who God is and how life works and how to be a good person and live the good life. It's just done so much for me. It helped me with my depression. When I was like 21, I was having a really bad depression, anxiety, all this stuff. It really helped me with that. It's helped me with every problem. It's not like I've mastered them all, but like most things that I've struggled with, that's been my biggest help for it. So when something helps you like that, you want to give that to other people. It's just not anyone who's like found a solution. You don't want other people to have to go through what you went through. So the Off the Left Eye channel, that phrase "off the left eye" comes from a story Swedenborg told about sort of when he felt like his inner sight was opened and it seemed like a covering was peeled off the left eye, because the left side of your brain is the intellectual side, and that's kind of like intellectual clarity, a symbol for that. That's where that phrase came from. I just named my channel that because I didn't want my channel to sound too like religious or anything that people are going to already have a preconceived notion about. I just wanted to be something weird that they would have a blank slate about. So in that channel, I have like 1,200 videos, and they're all just trying to explain this philosophy that I've found to be really helpful and clear and lead people to the good life. So that's what I'm doing on YouTube, but I've been doing that forever. I've been doing that since 2010. Most people weren't alive in 2000. Well, that's what it feels like. On YouTube, 2010 feels like a long time ago. And things have changed since then. We were just talking before the show that I've changed. I looked like a little kid when I started this out. My hair was too long. It was all crazy.
Yeah, he looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
It was bad. I didn't care about that kind of stuff back then. So all I'm saying is I feel like my purpose in life is I would need to share these teachings with people. I think it can help Christians become better Christians. I think it can help seekers find the answers that they're looking for. I think it can help anyone who wants to live a life that focuses on the good and the true, the tools they need to live that life.
I enjoy the channel. It's definitely my favorite channel on YouTube for sure. And before I got back into school, I was studying this stuff, like thinking, should I go to school and like really pursue something serious in this field? Like in Catholicism, I grew up Catholic. So I was, when I was young, I was thinking, instead of being a priest, I can be a deacon. I can still get married, then become a deacon after or something. And then I started going to school again for electrical. And so I put that on hold for a second. But that's when I spend my time, it's usually to better myself. And I really find myself learning a lot from your channel and from your group. So appreciate that very much. So, but let me ask
I'm so glad that it's been something helpful. When I got onto YouTube, I didn't think anyone was going to be interested. I felt like this is it's unfamiliar to people. They're not going to give it a chance. It's going to be too hard to understand. Is it really going to help? But after I got on YouTube, I saw people watching. It was helping them just like it helped me. Exact same way. It was just as important. And so that's when I knew I just got to do this for as long as I possibly can.
Nice. Now,
Swedenborg, he didn't start the church, to my understanding, but it was started after him, correct?
Yeah, so I actually do. So I work for the Swedenborg Foundation, which is a not-for-profit entity. Yeah, Swedenborg himself, Emanuel Swedenborg, born 1688, died 1772, didn't start anything. The only thing he did was write books and publish them. He didn't even have like a reading group. He just had books, wrote them, tried to go and like distribute them to the top theological people and the top academic people and royalty, and would go try to spread the message, but he never had any kind of organized group. After his death, not too many years after, there was groups of readers of his books that started up and began to get formalized. At some point, people started a couple of different religious sects or church, whatever you want to call it, religious groups based on that. There's other people who started secular groups. So that's continued through to this day. There's a number, it's not huge, but there's a good number of organizations that are kind of based around Swedenborg stuff. The one I work for is like 170 years old. It's been mainly keeping his books in print in English. But lately we've kind of ventured out into trying to basically promote the material and get people to understand it and help live by it. But all the churches and things, I like them a lot. I work closely with them. It's a small community. It's a small world, but hopefully I'm making it bigger by getting more people interested. Because I think not everybody in the entire world, but there's a lot of people in the world who could benefit from this stuff. So I'm trying to get it out to them.
And that was the best answer when I asked about relating it to kids. Everybody's online. Everybody's on YouTube. And if you make it in an enjoyable way, not really forcing it, it's entertaining and it's knowledgeable. So yeah, that actually is how you get to the youth. That's great.
Yeah, but
right? I feel like this is like what you guys are doing too. I mean, people negative influences are going to make content, and the content's going to be out there. So if you've got a positive thing to say, you got to make content as well. So you can balance that out and try to get it so people have some of that in their diet. I appreciate what you guys are doing on your podcast. I think it's just often you might feel like, well, I don't really want to put myself out there, but the people who are trying to put bad stuff out there, they're going to do it. So you gotta kind of push back on that. So I do think, I like being in that space and saying, well, you can't force anyone to think anything. It's a free marketplace of ideas. They can take it or leave it. But if I try to present it well, be interesting, then you have a shot at touching people and getting them to think about it more.
I came across a Swedenborg inspired video when I first learned about your channel. I don't know who makes it, but he used to draw pictures and then narrate over the pictures. I shared it with Karen Childs, and I forgot, she told me he stopped making the videos, but those were pretty good, and those could maybe attract a youth because it's all cartoons like a Hans Williams type.
That's right. I know who that is. It's a small world. I think what you're talking about is Brian David. It was called The Nothingness Principle, was his YouTube channel. I love those, man. That was that was back when I had first started. He was doing Nothingness Principle, and he had some good ones, man. Some of those got like 20,000 views. Like he was getting some good views on them. But yeah, he did stop. I wish he would pick it back up again. If you're watching right now, Brian, let's go. Let's get some more cartoons.
Yeah, the Who is Jesus one is phenomenal.
That's right.
Yeah, I still to this day I share it with people. I get called a heretic when I do, but I do share it.
Hey, Curtis, the other Mike just got here.
How you doing, Curtis?
All right, other Mike, welcome.
Let me turn this on.
How are you? I'm a big fan. My buddy Mike here introduced me to Off the Left Eye, and I love the work you guys do. I've been a big fan.
If you want to see him, just jump right here.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you're into it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so that's just to distinguish. That's Dr. Mike, and I'm non-Dr. Mike. So
right. That's how we'll tell you apart.
Yeah, I'm not an educated one.
Hey, what's up, Dr. Mike?
How are you?
That's
doing well.
See you. The little screen. There you go.
Hey, so just to be clear, Swedenborgianism or the New Church is a Christian sect, correct?
I would say it'd be really hard to try to pass it off as not Christian. I mean, the guy is, you're never going to find anyone in history who is more into the Bible than Swedenborg is. It's funny, man. You were just talking about getting called a heretic. I got so many Christians that'll be like, this is false teaching. Why don't you mention the name of Jesus? Why don't you talk about the Bible? We do all the time. Actually, the entire, like most of Swedenborg's works are just about looking at the meaning in the Bible. And he believed the entire Bible talks about Jesus and talks about the sort of inner path that he had, which is the thing he's laying out for us to do. So it's very, very Christian. I mean, the thing about it is I think it's because it's true. It resonates with other faith traditions. There was a guy named D.T. Suzuki who is credited with like bringing Zen Buddhism to the West, and he wrote this book that's called Buddha of the North, and it was about Swedenborg because some of the core themes of how he describes the balance of goodness and truth and the way divine providence. He said those are like the core of Buddhism. So there's like parallels there because I think there's kind of a divine truth behind it all. So Swedenborg will appeal to and influence people in all kinds of other religious traditions, but he's very, very Christian in everything that he talks about. But I would say there's an open-mindedness and a rationality to his Christianity that a lot of people find refreshing and important.
Yeah, I even saw Christian Buddhists, non-Christian Buddhists, attending the Christian Mass with Reverend Corey online in Canada. And he's interviewing them, and they're not Christian, but they believe in the Buddha of the North, Swedenborg. And it's pretty cool that the teachings could resonate, and I think because, if anybody, that shies away from the stuff in the Bible that sounds unrealistic, they can find comfort with what Swedenborg is saying.
I think, Christians, I think a lot of Christians are struggling because there seems to be this world that has passed the Bible by. With advances of science and even the sort of blossoming of new forms of ethics and human rights and these kinds of things, it seems like, wow, a lot of the things in the Bible, can they survive now? It seems to conflict with modern science. It seems like there are better answers out there. And I think a lot of Christians are wringing their hands about this. Like, is the church going to survive? I wish they could understand how incredible Swedenborg's explanation of the Bible is, because it absolutely solves those problems and makes it so that I can, my closest copy is over there. But to me, it's like that this is the greatest thing this is the most useful thing on the planet for the human race. And I'm not worried at all about any of the things people are upset about, contradictions or there's cruelty in it, because if you understand correspondences and the language it's really written in, it's just this incredible guide, this moral guide, this ethical guide. So I feel like, yes, so many people have watched our channel and said, oh, now I can kind of reclaim the Christianity from my youth, because people will have had maybe a Christian background, but there were things in that faith that they just couldn't stomach. They say, I don't like what it says about this. Like, how would a loving God do that? So they left it behind, but there's a part of them that still longs for it. So when they find this sort of rational, loving picture that Swedenborg's writings add to Christianity, they're like, oh, I can have the Bible back. I can have all this stuff back, but keep the things that I believe are important and true. So I think it does a lot of good for that.
Yeah, to your point,
That mic's not working. Use this one. That one's not working.
To your point, that was actually kind of my story. I grew up Christian, but I had, like you said, some issues with it. Like, why is, how could God be cruel and loving, and the idea of punishment, all these ideas. But like you said, Swedenborg really puts a really logical twist to it, and it makes sense. So, and like you said, it's pervasive, like in other, it might be me because I'm studying Swedenborg, but what you referred to before about being pervasive in other religions and other stuff. And I send stuff to Mike sometimes, and I show him a YouTube video. I'm like, is that a Swedenborgian concept I just saw in this video? And I don't know if it's just I'm studying or it's just really, because it's true. It's just, pervasive in other religions and other things,
I love that. It's a great point. And it's so fun to go and see it in everywhere. I started doing reaction videos with just like as a little thing on the side. When I start reacting to a video, I just am assuming this is going to line up with Swedenborg if it's something, because you just see it everywhere. I do think that the cool thing about Swedenborg's teachings is you can just see them reflected in the way that the world works, which I don't think is true for all religious ideas. And that's what we try to illustrate in our show, especially recently. Every time we want to illustrate a spiritual concept, he says, I'm like, okay, where's something physical that works like that? Like we just did a short where we had like a fan blow pieces of paper, because I was like, that is just like the way that good activates truth. I want to show people that this is not something you just have to trust these books for. You get an idea from that, but then you should be able to, you have to go out and see if you really believe it for yourself. And yeah, it's in the way that the physical world works, but also that, yeah, you can see it at the heart of a lot of religions, and you just can see it in goodness. You know, people who are driven by goodness will sort of tend to believe the same things that I believe. Like there's just like God is like pulling people into this center or something.
Hey, I was curious, what religion were you raised in?
Swedenborg.
Really?
So yeah, no, I grew up in a little, like, without going to a Swedenborg church in Detroit. I mean, or just north of Detroit, in Oakland County, Michigan. And so my parents were readers of Swedenborg. I've always had it around. I think that's part of why I'm just like, well, it's not weird to me. I'll just get in there as deep as I can. Although I would say that there's some of my friends I grew up with who are also in that church. They don't care about it anymore. They think so. It's not automatic that you're gonna not. Most people don't stick with the faith of their youth. But I think there was a crossroads for me when, as I mentioned before, when I was really starting to have some challenges with anxiety, depression, and mental health stuff. When I remember pretty distinctly reading some things in his books and having this feeling of like, well, that's real. Like that's talking about something real that I can observe in myself right now. And there was a point at which it took on a new life for me. And I got really into it. But I wasn't like, I did not think when I was going to college that I was going to be a guy that talked about Swedenborg for my job. That wasn't my plan. Actually, I was a much more kind of private with my religion and my faith. Like, well, I guess because like that's how teenagers are. But I remember when I first started making stuff online about Swedenborg. I was working when I was working for Swedenborg Foundation. Like one of the first things I did for them, I had to create this Facebook page to try to sell Heaven and Hell. And it was called Heaven and Hell. And I remember when I published it, back then a notification would go out to people. They're like, Curtis published a page called Heaven and Hell. And I was like, ooh, I hope none of my high school friends saw that. Because I was like, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to talk about heaven and hell. Like, but it just so happened that, I mean, the stuff was undeniable to me. I just kept getting pulled in that direction. I used to think I was going to go to school. I was going to, was getting my degree in biology because I wanted to study nature. And I thought that was so cool. But it just kept pulling me in that direction. And I started to get good at public speaking and those kinds of things, which I wasn't that good at before. And it got to the point where I just felt like there's nothing else I want to do but tell people about this because it's getting to be so helpful for me. So there was like, it was always around, but I didn't always think, well, I'm going to go make YouTube videos, or I'm going to talk about this to everyone. But here I am, you know?
So what made you start making the YouTube videos?
So when I was getting ready to graduate college, I had switched my major to communications because I felt like I'm starting to get good at communicating stuff. I should major in what I'm good in. And near the end of that, I got an offer from one of the Swedenborg-based churches that was in Bernathen. They were doing this startup kind of modern church thing called New Church Live. And they said, do you want to come and be part of it? And at first I thought, no, I don't want to because I don't want to work for a church. You know, that was the mindset I was in. But then I saw some of the material they were making and I thought, that's actually cool. And I needed a job. I understood that I was about to. So I was just like, all right, you know what? Something in me is saying maybe I'll go try to do this. So that was when in that experience was when I really started to get excited about the idea of spreading this faith to people, because I just got more immersed in the power of it, and went and looked at what other churches were doing, and I thought, wow, they're having this really good impact, but their teachings are not that good. What if you had really good teachings with this technology and everything? So that thing started to run out of money, and so I was like, how can we reach a bunch of people quickly? And that was really when I first started looking at YouTube, because I wasn't on YouTube before. I wasn't watching it. I just thought, like, oh, if you like fall off your skateboard in a video, you put that on YouTube, or there's a cat jumping in a box. I didn't think there was anything deep going on YouTube, but I started to look up religion on YouTube, and it was, I saw these videos. That was at the height of like new atheism, and there's all these videos of all kinds debunking Christianity and saying, look, this is why Christianity doesn't make sense. This is why it doesn't make sense that God can exist. That was a big one back then. And I saw these videos did not have a lot of production value. They were like just somebody talking with some PowerPoint slides, but they'd have like 6 million views. And I thought, like, that's where people can learn about Swedenborg. And I also saw the conversation there was so polarized. It was just, on one hand, you had a bunch of atheists who were very anti-religion, and they were dominating YouTube. And then you had a couple of very fundamentalist Christians on the other side. There was no middle. There was no like rational spirituality. There was nothing like what Swedenborg offered. And I thought, like, that's where we can get Swedenborg out. So I started making a couple of videos to try to reach people on that. And that's what, again, I have not had like some master plan
but that was a strategic move.
Yeah.
Very strategic move, because that was an untapped niche.
Yeah, and
right?
I didn't really think of it like that. I do believe in providence. Swedenborg talks about providence, says that, you know, we think we're running things, but actually God is doing what he does, because he's got the biggest brain. He's going to figure this out. And I definitely, a lot of the stuff that's been successful for me was just good fortune. I remember one example I love to think about is the time when our channel really took off. I had been doing 1-minute videos. They were called the Swedenborg Minute, because I thought people would only want to watch a minute long thing. And at the time, that was kind of the wisdom. So I was doing that, and we were getting something, but we couldn't get, like, our videos were staying kind of the same amount of views. And I thought people need to know. So I had seen some other channels who had longer sort of explanation videos of their worldview. And I thought, there's so much information here. I'm going to make like 15-minute animated videos that explain the whole worldview. So I started to work on that with my brother, who was working with me at the time. And I thought, well, while we're working on that, I need to do something to keep my subscribers, because I had like 1,500 subscribers at the time. I need something to keep them entertained so we don't lose them while we're making these big videos. So eventually I figured, well, maybe I'll just read through Swedenborg's books, like kind of in a live stream, just to sort of, and that was what took off. That was when our channel took off. Those long form read through Swedenborg. That's when we started to get a bunch of views and a bunch of, so it's all stuff that I thought I was going to do this, but actually we're doing this. Okay, I'll go with that. There's been so many of those moments in this whole thing. So I'm thinking there's got to be providence is trying to get this message to certain people. And it's using me like sort of like a stick in a river getting pushed along. Like, okay, go over here. Now go over here. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it.
I like it.
So I know you guys are reaching a bunch of people, but do you have any advice? Like, let's say you want to share Swedenborg with somebody, like a friend or a family member, you know, without trying, obviously you don't want to convert anybody or force any religion on anybody. But let's say, you know, if I went to my dad, who's old school, and I said, hey, there's this guy that talks to spirits and he learned this and this, you know, he'd be like, what, yes. Are you crazy? Get out of here. So what do you think is like a tactful way that would, you know, make people interested in Swedenborg, you know? And...
The funny thing about Swedenborg is he says so much weird sounding stuff, like where he talks to spirits, and but all of the conclusions he reaches are so practical. And so like he'll illustrate it by the way that the spiritual world works and all that. But what it comes down to is very simple. Like, here's how you effectively love your neighbor. Here is how you practice charity. Here's how you regenerate or you grow spiritually. Like, the conclusions are very, and they're very much like head nodders. Like, if you say them right, everyone's just like, well, of course, you know, you have to have love go along with faith. Like, if you just have ideas and there's not love driving them, then okay. So I would say there's certain principles. Oh, one principle I like is that's a little weird but not too weird is the grand human. So it's the idea that, hey, you want to see what heaven is? Look at the human body. That's a picture of heaven, because everything in there, everything in there is working for the whole, and everything there is getting what it needs from the whole. And there's no like jealousy. The knee is not jealous of the elbow. There's no like I'm hoarding. Like the brain only takes what it needs, so it can do. There's this heaven. You're sitting right in there, and that's the way the human race can work together. I love that one. I think that people are like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. So I think there's so much you can cover in Swedenborg without having to say the spirits thing. Sometimes I do think I need to have just a channel for regular people where I just give the philosophy without any of the Swedenborgness. I love the weird stuff because to me it's like the physics that underlies it that gives me. But I am actually writing a book right now that I'm trying to have be kind of that's really simple and practical. Also, usefulness. Oh, usefulness is a good thing to talk about. To say that happiness, human happiness, true lasting human happiness, which Swedenborg would call heaven, it has to have a foundation of being useful to other people. That you can have other things in your life that are fun, but they ultimately, life is usefulness. If you zoom in and look at the way a cell is, every little bit in there, I don't need to tell you this, you're a doctor, but everything in there is doing something. Everything in there is doing life. Life is a bunch of little, like you got your Golgi apparatus and your ribosome. They're doing something in there. If we found something that's not doing anything, it's like, whoa, what's this? Everything does something. Yeah. So if life is about usefulness, why wouldn't we find our happiness in usefulness? So I feel like usefulness is another one that it's just so practically apparent. And Swedenborg even goes so far to say that that's the most religious thing you can do, is to go out and do your job in a way where you're trying to be just and fair and honest for the sake of the greater good. That's like where religion goes into practice. I feel like that's awesome. That's hard to. So there's a couple things like that maybe your dad would like let you open the door a crack with,
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, I found if you talk about the stuff without saying his name, everybody agrees. Catholics, that's Protestants, right. Everybody. And as soon as if you crack the Swedenborg, the Protestants run the other way for them right away.
And part of that is because his name sounds so weird. Emanuel Swedenborg. Swedenborg is a weird name. But you know what? And also, I guess people think it's weird to be basing out your life philosophy off of somebody like who has a curly wig and lived in the 1700s. But everything is based off of stuff like that. I mean, Protestants who think they're just normal. Martin Luther is older than that. People think, oh, we're just this is just Christianity. There's some old looking guys that set out the principles that you now live by. And same thing with even a lot of modern sort of social justice has its roots in like a Marx or people in that time period. Everything really runs on people in that era. Sort of even capitalism. It was just like Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations was just published like 8 years after Swedenborg's Heaven and Hell. Like the whole modern world runs on philosophy that was laid down in that time period. So it's actually not that strange to have a foundation come out of that. It's just that most people don't even realize that, when people will talk about like the free market or the hand of the market, they don't understand that came from a guy in Swedenborg's time. Or people will talk about, social justice or whatever, and they don't understand that came from a guy, I guess, like, a couple decades later. It's, that's what everybody's doing, but it's just weird because people don't realize that's where they're getting their info from. So Swedenborg's weird, but he's not weirder than those other guys.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a little because he saw spirits and things, but that's another thing. That's okay. That doesn't count.
When I first came across the channel, I saw something about that the second coming isn't physical, and then I started seeing contradictions to what I learned as growing up as a Catholic. But I said, yeah, this stuff is way too good for me to turn my back on this. So I'm going to avoid every time they talk about Jesus, and I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to skip, go to the next video until I really understand what they're talking about. And then I'll listen. And that way I didn't turn away. Because I remember in the comment I wrote, yeah, but you guys talk about Swedenborg like a prophet. And somebody responded, well, he kind of is. And then I was like, oh, wait. Man, I'm Catholic. I believe in all these saints. I can't add Swedenborg to that list.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a great strategy that you had. Would you say? I kind of like this. I know that this is gonna. I want to see more what they're about. I wish more people took that stance on everything. Because right now it's so like, I don't like what this person's talking about, I'm shutting them out. But just I'm gonna give them a chance, and you got to do that. You have to. It doesn't matter. I can't ever teach somebody what to think on YouTube and they don't think about it for themselves and it goes deep into them, right? This is a principle Swedenborg lays out, that the only way any religion or anything, but most importantly religion or faith or spirituality gets in you is when you can, through your own rationality and with your own freedom, see it for yourself. Like there's just it doesn't matter how great your teachers were, how much you love it, there has to be a period in which you're doing what you did there, which is, I'm looking for myself. Do I really think this is true? Do I really think it's good? So I hope that I can, that's kind of the vibe that our channel gives off, but I just love it. That I love that coming out of Swedenborg, that he's saying like, you can't just, and he never, and he doesn't say like, you have to believe me because of who I am. He's like, I'm just nobody. Actually, I just was watching this thing. Jonathan Rose, who you mentioned that he was given this talk to members of the Swedenborg Foundation, to co-workers of his, about how Swedenborg's writing style changed as he came into this spirituality. Earlier in his life, he was very arrogant, sort of egocentric guy. I mean, he was really talented, really smart and successful, and he's kind of a prick. And you could see it in his writing. But when he's watching, when Swedenborg went through this transformation and sort of did his own regeneration work, and you can see it in his spiritual or his journal of dreams, where he has to confront his own ego and all this stuff. When he gets around to finally writing the writings, or what we call the writings, like his theological books, his writing style has changed so much. It has it's basically it's stripped down. It doesn't have any like flourishes or cleverness to it. Jonathan Rose was saying that it's written like below high school level, just so simple. Like it's very succinct, and I mean it's very. He knows what he's talking about, but he's not trying to impress anyone. He's just trying to really. There's this guy named William James, who was influential, and he had a brother, Henry James. Their dad was really into Swedenborg, and he wrote this review where he said, listen, if you're just in this for the literary, these are not entertaining books. They're not written in a clever way. What Swedenborg is doing is getting out of the way so the truth can shine for itself, because he was no longer interested in being the man. He just was like, this stuff saved my life. I want to share it with you. So I feel like that's cool. And the fact that Swedenborg wasn't charismatic, he wasn't like a great speaker, he didn't have people around him, following him. He just was this kind of bookwormy guy who published this stuff. I think that passes the smell test for me.
Yeah, it was funny. I was listening to, I don't know if you ever heard of Jadakiss. You know who Jadakiss is?
Yep.
So Jadakiss, they're from Yonkers, right? From where we're from.
Okay.
And in New York, right by the Bronx. And I was listening to his bandmate Styles, and he had a little brother that died. That my brother saw his brother die, and my sister died in a car accident also. So I was listening to it, and then I was telling myself, man, I want to see Styles so I can tell him, yo, like your brother's good, he's alive, and share some Swedenborg with him. The next day, I go to the barbershop and I bump into Styles. And I shared the Swedenborg quote with him, and he loved it. He was like, yo, who's that? Who said that? I was like, this Emanuel Swedenborg. I got a book for you. It's at my house. I was going to give it to his manager because I know his manager. But he said, yeah, bring it over here to the barbershop and I'll take it. So I dropped it off to his barber, and his barber gave it to him. and hopefully we'll be interviewing them soon. So hopefully he cracked the book, and maybe he quotes some of it on the next record. I don't know.
That's right. That's right,
Yeah.
man. We'll find some of it that rhymes. Yeah.
Yeah, he
That's great.
The quote is one of my favorites. The one I shared with him, it was on my phone. The quality of the man depends on the quality of the wisdom. No, of the love, therefore the quality of the wisdom, something to that effect.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a real good one. I saw you guys share it one day, so I saved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when
That's
I told
great.
it to him, he liked it a lot, and then that's when I said, "Oh, let me get him the book." It's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that I feel like I call it like the Swedenborg effect, is where sometimes the words will just hit people really hard, and they're like and when we used to put out videos, and I would think these are not good videos. Nobody is gonna like these. That's just not. I'm not doing a great job on them, but people would get really impacted by them, and I think it's the Swedenborg effect. I think it's just not everyone all the time, but a lot of people and any kind of person can just be in the right phase where the truth like speaks to them, and they just get really hit. It doesn't matter how good the video was. It's like that's in there, and just like seeing that is like, whoa, who wrote that? What is that? Because it speaks to something deep inside you. I think it really does.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced any psychedelics?
I know I haven't. I've done like a number of interviews with guys who have psychedelics channels, and they're like, well, why haven't you done any since you're always talking about this like after when I was comparing Swedenborg stuff with what they were finding in psychedelics. I feel like at this point I've just got my little mind where I want it to be, and I don't want to throw an unknown in there. I don't want it to be like, oh, I messed up. So, like for some people, I've known people very close to me for whom that's really helped them out and been good. But I'm just like, because when I hit my depression, like I'd like smoked pot, that kind of stuff. Even that was starting to wig me out, and I was like, I'm not doing any of this stuff anymore. And now I've finally just got my mind to where, okay, like my little world works good in here. So I'm like, I'm not messing with it. I have had a lot of people say, yeah, that helps them, and that they'll compare what they find in that world to the stuff Swedenborg has, but I haven't just taken that trip.
From like what you've heard or read, do you see any correlation with the spiritual world with like reviews?
I mean, it seems like it. It seems like it. Yeah. So, like I said, there's a number you can find them on YouTube where I've been interviewed by a number of people on channels that focus on psychedelics and DMT and that kind of thing. And we'll also get comments fairly often of people saying, I saw that when I was. I would think. I mean, if it really is that there's a spiritual world and a physical world, and they're really just like sitting on top of each other. But one of the things that Swedenborg was really trying to communicate is that the spiritual world is just right in your face. Like it is right there. It influences the way you think and feel. It influences the way like the two, you can't really separate them. And if people are taking psychedelics and then they're suddenly finding themselves in this different world, like what world is that? I don't know if it's like a direct experience of the spiritual world or it's some kind of mix of the two. There's probably really complicated things going on. I mean, the brain is complicated. Consciousness is spiritual things are more so. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but it seems like people experience, I mean, just like dreams. When Swedenborg describes dreams, which had a big part in his awakening, he seems to describe kind of this meeting place of the physical and the spiritual. Like you have, for example, he says that if dreams are influenced by the spiritual world, and he says that, for example, if there's people in the spiritual world talking about something, and they're near where your spirit is when you're dreaming, their conversation will impact your dreams. But it will impact your dreams in a way that's unique to your own mind. So Swedenborg gave the example of he was asleep, and so this is some of the Swedenborg. Don't tell this to your dad. He will think this is weird. But so he was saying that there's these two angels, and they were talking together about superficiality, or people who are sort of just materialistic and self-centered. And so Swedenborg started having a dream about a guy he knew who he thought was the same way that they were talking about. So that's why these dreams are like, why is this person in my dream? That's not the only way dreams are made. He talked about different categories of them. But again, it's this sort of meeting place of what's in your mind and the spiritual world. My best guess would be psychedelics create a similar kind of interface, but yeah, that's just my armchair expertise on it.
So
Armchair expertise, I like that.
So I've heard people say that, if psychedelics do, alter your consciousness or, bring you to a spiritual realm or something, that, a better way to do it and probably the more effective ways through like meditation. And I believe Swedenborg was a meditator. Have you ever tried meditation or anything like that?
Yes, I'm not good at it. Swedenborg was, yes, so I don't know if the meditation wasn't a thing in his day in the same way as it is now in Northern Europe, but he did use that word a lot. He would say, I was meditating, and you often say like I was meditating on some concept. He'll say I was meditating on, so like focusing hard on some concept, and that's when that would like trigger an out-of-body experience. But he also did a lot of stuff with breath. Yeah, he talked about internal breathing and altering his breath, and that often his states of out-of-body experience correlated with changes in breath. Me myself, like I'm trying in my own little way. It's so hard for me to get my mind to like slow all the way down. I've had some success with it, but I definitely not. I know plenty of people who like can do meditating, and then they have like they'll see things in there and they'll get really. So I'm not there, but the little bit I've done, I've liked.
It was. It looked like it was hard to get you to stop cracking jokes on YouTube during your shows. If you watch him before and you watch him now, you're like, yeah, he's two different people. Back then, he was like the comedy hour with like a little. You infused a lot of comedy, which I liked. But yeah, it doesn't seem like you would be able to. You got a mind that you can quiet. That's my point.
It's hard. Yeah, it's tough to do that. And I think different people will find. That's why some people are like, oh, I need to be like walking to meditate. I think that I'll get into states where if I'm really focusing on something or doing something where I kind of feels like I'm in a bit of a flow. But I also like when I'm like reading Swedenborg and getting ideas for things, I'm pretty high there. Like I can definitely get into a place where it's like, wow, I can feel this is all flowing, and I'm like, I can tell when I'm not in that, when I'm like, I can't think of anything to write right now. So there's sort of a bit of a state that it's mild, but I get into it when work is going really good.
Have you ever tried breath work?
I've done, and I did once. I was on a retreat for a leadership group I was doing, and we did this like sort of extended breath work session, and I loved that. I still think I actually got that. Like there was a playlist that was playing in the background, and I asked the woman who was facilitating their retreat, like, can I have that playlist? Because I have such good associations with it now. So I've done some of that. I've been working with a speaking coach, try to get me better at speaking, and he's gotten me like focusing on my breath and how I do things. So I've done a little bit. I've done some. I'm not a breath master, but I've done some.
The reason I bring it up, do you know who Wim Hof is?
No, I don't.
Look him up afterwards. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the point is he promotes this breath work that helped him through tough times.
Yeah.
And it actually it changes the temperature of your body and all this scientific stuff. But once I started practicing that breath work, because part of the breath work is holding your breath for minutes at a time, 1 minute minimum, about 3 minutes maximum. During holding my breath, I think that's where I learned meditation. It's easier to really focus on one thing when you're doing it for minutes at a time, like holding your breath. Personally, that helped me, and if you really want to try it, I really think it's beneficial. Not only to you, but
That's
also
great.
the viewers that are watching. Wim Hof, look up his breathing technique. It helped me. It might help you. It might not. It's worth a try, though.
That's great. And I want to get something also, like I've got to go and do a presentation Like I'll sometimes do speaking engagements and things, and I'm always thinking I need to have a pretty good system. Like I have a routine I go through, but I bet there's some kind of like breathing thing that I could do to kind of bring my energy up before that. So maybe let's see if he has that too. But I love the idea of that. Like, yeah, I bet if I was holding my breath, it's like, oh, I got to focus on this. So good. How do you spell his name?
WIMHOF.
Oh, that's simple. Okay. Yeah. Wim Hof. Just like it sounds.
Yep. Yep.
Didn't Swedenborg associate the lungs with your mind in some way?
Yeah, I mean,
Talk
so
about
he's all about, and I think this is again an example of, I think, Swedenborg aligning with sort of widespread ecumenical truth. There's so many traditions that talk about breathing is how you quiet your mind, or this is something to. And to Swedenborg, there's two faculties in the human mind that make us human. There's the will and the intellect, and the will is your what you love, your purpose that you have, and the intellect is what you believe, or sort of the form that takes. And he said that there's a correspondence or an image of that in the heart and lungs. That just like your heart pumps blood to your entire body and your lungs oxygenate that blood, and so their oxygen gets to the whole body, that's what the will and intellect does for your mind. So he said that, yeah, the intellect corresponds to the lungs, the heart corresponds to the will. So breathe, that anything, and it go when if breath is mentioned in the Bible, it's talking about something intellectual. If the heart is mentioned in the Bible, it's talking about something volitional. So absolutely, there's a connection between the lungs and the mind. And according to him, that's why so many traditions have this, because there's this innate reality where the two things like are images of each other.
Is there a story in the Bible that's maybe your favorite with the Swedenborg explanation behind it?
Oh man, I love the Swedenborg explanation. There's so many times when something that is bizarre to me, or is really unpleasant, suddenly it's like, oh, that's actually great. The explanation he gives, I really like it. I mean, probably there's so many that I don't have a lot of them memorized as much as I should, but I really love the creation story.
Yeah, you got one of the best lines on that one. The 1 minute video. I still, to this day, I always recite your line to people. When I tell them about the first day, there's let there be light, and then on the fourth, how is there the sun if there's already light? Then I say at the end what you say. I said, then God rests, but not on a bed somewhere inside of you, and you become the image and likeness of Christ. And everybody's like, whoa, he rests inside of me. yeah. And it's a cool line, bro.
You know what? Yeah, that's great. I forgot that I said that, but that's a good line.
Yeah, that is a good line. Yeah. I know the guy that said it.
You experience that. When things that if you get to be an adult and your life sort of gets to be about, you're trying to make certain things happen. You're trying to have a career, provide for your family, whatever you're doing. When things are going well, that's when you really feel at rest. I feel like it's sure, maybe not physical rest, but there's like, if I'm behind on work or things are not going well, I can't just go take a nap and feel good. I'm anxious. Like things and need to go well for me to really get this sense of peace. So wouldn't it be for God that when is God really resting? Like if you had a kid who was suffering and upset and you're their mom, when are you going to rest? Like you're going to rest when they're happy. So once we go through this regeneration and we get to that seventh stage where God is right there and able to give us the happiness he wants, I can totally see that's when he rests. That's when he rests, is when we can, where there's plenty to do, but the struggle is over. So I love creation story, and I love how the explanation for that makes it so you don't have to have this, like a lot of Christians, like I said, will have to be hung up on, well, the Bible says this is how things are created. So if they go and look in Hubble telescope and it seems like it happened like this, well, I got to ignore that, or I give up my, it's not an issue. It's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. And really, what's more important? Why, if God's going to make a book for you, why does he need to tell you about how the universe started? Like, that's relatively trivial, because you can't, like, I'm not going to do anything about it. But the creation story that Swedenborg gives is like, here's how you find heaven. This is something like, it's not just trivia. This is something I need this can help me in my life right now. And that the entire Bible becomes that. This is really good. It's really good.
Good.
We got to hit him with the question now that he said that. So we always ask faith or works, and I'm sure it's going to be a totally different answer from a Swedenborgian. So what is salvation to a Swedenborgian, and is it faith or works?
Yeah, so it's works. Faith is just a means by which works can happen. So and people will say, is it faith or works? They're often talking about salvation. Is it salvation through faith or works? So salvation comes about through the creation story that we just talked about. I mean, salvation is a matter of you becoming a little heaven. God is trying to make you into heaven, make you into that seventh day where he rests. That's the salvation. When the love that moves you to act in life is the same love that God has, which is a love for the entire human race, that's salvation. So faith is just a means by which we come to genuine love. You just take faith by itself, which is just a series of concepts, which is like, that God exists and that Jesus gives you these commands. Go look at history. Plenty of people can have that faith and they got all those ideas, and yet they go and do terrible things, and they live opposite to the life that Jesus is asking you to live. Even when Jesus came on earth, he was going after religious people who had all the faith, but they were not living the life, and they were trying to trap him into, like, can you really help someone on the Sabbath? And so faith is a means by which we can learn who God is and what love is. Faith allows you to practice that love. And when you do that, then it becomes part of who you are. So I wouldn't, works is kind of like the end result of love, because if you just go out and do a bunch of good things, but you're doing it for self-centered reasons, or if you're like a mafia boss and you're like, I'm going to give to charity so the feds don't suspect me of this. Those works, that's not the works we're talking about. I mean, the real work is inside. Faith is meant to change your heart so that you end up doing good to the neighbor because for the right reason, which is love for the human race, because that's what the Lord wants you to do. So that's what really saves you, because that's heaven inside you. That's a long answer, but I think that's my answer to faith versus works.
That's a beautiful answer. Definitely.
Thank you.
Please, Curtis, let the viewers know how they can find you.
Just search Swedenborg on YouTube. No, not that many other people doing it. So youtube.com/offtheLeftEye. That's my YouTube channel. If you go there, we got 1,200 videos explaining all this stuff. And if you leave a comment on any of our videos, we got a little team of people that will come in and answer your questions. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can do everything you want to do there. If you want to download some of Swedenborg's books for free, you can go to Swedenborg.com. That's the Swedenborg Foundation's website. We got PDFs of Heaven and Hell, a bunch of other books that you can get free of charge. So those are two places. That's plenty to get started.
Hey, one thing, I'm guessing you're not going to release any Secrets of Heaven on Audible, correct?
I don't think on Audible. I don't know if they're going to do that. They're recording a new audiobook of Heaven and Hell right now. We have a couple audiobooks, but they're old, and there's a few things that need to get fixed. So they're working on that. I'm not sure what their release plan is for that. Is Audible good? I think I had it for a little while.
Yeah, I got all the Swedenborgs on Audible. The one thing I didn't like about Heaven and Hell, though, was when they were citing, there was one part in the middle of the book where they kept citing stuff.
I know.
And it was...
that's part of why they were doing it. Is because there's so much of that. So Secrets of Heaven, they got to... the problem with Secrets of Heaven is,
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's so technical. Like, at the beginning of every chapter, it will say, read the whole Bible thing, then it'll give you the short summary, then it'll give you the long summary, then I would listen to that. I don't know how many other people are going to tolerate that. So I think it would probably be a lower priority than Heaven and Hell and things. I hope eventually if it was up to me, we do everything of everything because, I want somebody who is interested to never run out of stuff to listen to and do. And I guess probably pretty soon AI will just be able to read those books to you no problem. So maybe we'll do it then. But there's no plan, but I hope we get to it.
Yeah, me too. Or maybe like a best of, like the Swedenborg sample, but just for heaven and hell. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, not heaven and hell, for Secrets of Heaven.
Secrets of Heaven. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would. There's so much cool. So Secrets of Heaven is big and sprawling, but there are so many cool concepts in there that you don't find anywhere else. Whenever I'm gonna go we make these little 1 minute short videos now, YouTube shorts that we'll publish all over. But I always just pick up Secrets of Heaven and just flip through it until I see a long paragraph. Because I know he's saying something cool in there. And that's where you will get most of my ideas for the shorts is from that stuff. So it's good.
Nice. I also recommend listening to it on Audible on 1.25 or 1.5 speed. Because he talks slow, so you get through it quicker. And in New York, we talk fast anyway, so it's easy to catch. So.
I don't got time for this. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I enjoy it. I love the programming. God bless you and your family. And everybody, and good luck with third grade for your daughter. And, God willing, you see her graduate from everything that you want her to become in the future.
Last words.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing the message with everybody. You guys are doing great on the YouTube channel and everything, and keep it up. You guys are doing great work.
Curtis,
Appreciate
any last words?
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you to the three of you for getting to have this. I love having these kind of conversations. Appreciate you having me on here. Let's do it again sometime. Everybody watching, great to see you. I'll see you again.
Thanks.
Definitely.
Thank you very much for your time, man.
Yeah. God bless, brother.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Talk About It with Franjez. Everybody that watched, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that beautiful stuff. Peace and love.
Peace, love, and wisdom.